Dare to change your seat. Today, I want to share with you one of my favorite stories of how one conversation can change someone's life, career, their boss's career, and the whole organization. Last year, I was at a volunteering event and I met this wonderful engineering leader. She just recently got hired to a new organization in a leadership position. And as we were talking, she shared with me that she noticed that there was a gap. Um, Her team, including her boss, were talking the walk, but they were slow in walking the walk. And she really wanted to help them to not miss the finish line. So I said, well, looks like you really care. If you wouldn't be afraid, what's one small action that you would take? She looked at me and smiled. Funny that you ask. Actually, I would ask my boss permission to sit in her seat. You see, I noticed that in the meeting where most of the decisions are made and the most important decisions are made, everybody sits in the same seat always. So I think it would shake them up a little bit to sit in different seats. So I said, "So what's holding you back from asking your boss?" She paused for a minute and said, "Well, I think I'm afraid of her saying no, and then what would happen next." I paused and I said, "Well, think about it the other way. If you would be your boss, the leader, would you want your team to be open and give you the opportunity to see something that you might not see?" She nodded and said, "Yes, of course." So maybe this opportunity is really for you to show that you care and that you respect your boss. Because think about it, if you don't say anything, the answer is no, because your boss won't do anything about it because you didn't give her the opportunity to hear about this idea and then to do something about it. So really the default is a no. So everything will happen as you know it right now. But if you dare to speak up and ask, then you give her the opportunity to do something about it. And I think the important part here is that for you to detach from the outcome, no matter if she says yes or no, if you are okay either way, you give her the authority to make the final decision because it's her team. She smiled back at me. Oh, that makes sense. So I said, so what would you ask your boss? How would you phrase it? And she said, well, I mean, my intention is really just to ask her to let me see the world from her perspective, to understand what it's like to carry the organization on her shoulders. I said, that's great. That's all what you need. To have clear intention, to check your intention, to be honest with yourself and others, and stay curious when you ask. She thanked me. And as she was walking away, I said, hold up, let me give you my email. And if you do ask, please, in a brief email, let me know what happened. So 2 weeks later, I got an email from her saying, Andrea, I did it. And guess what happened? And then she described what happened. She said, I asked exactly the same way as we talked. I asked for permission to see the world from her perspective, to sit in her chair to understand how is to carry the organization on her shoulders. And she was so surprised that she said yes, and then asked me for one thing. She asked me to go in the meeting by myself first, sit in her chair, and then trust the process. So that's what I did. I went and I sat down in her chair. And of course, as expected, somebody on the team noticed that I was sitting in her chair and kindly advised me to remove myself to vacate the seat because that was the boss's chair. And that's when my boss walked in and said, I gave her permission to sit in my chair. She asked me to see the world from my perspective today. And now I'm looking for a new seat. And that's when all the hands went up, Andrea, and everybody shouted, Take mine. And the room just shifted and the energy changed. So from that day on, the whole team, we've been rotating where we sit in that meeting and then in other meetings. And then every other team found out about what we are doing. And suddenly the organization is doing it now. And guess what? I think this is something that it will change the organization and change how we play the game, the infinite game. So thank you. So I wanted to share this with you because it's a fascinating story. And when I tagged up with this leader earlier this year, I found out that even to this day, they are rotating seats. And rotating seats now is part of the organizational culture. So one conversation can really change someone's career and then affect somebody else's career. So take the chance and make the opportunity to have one conversation with someone today.